This is probably going to be the third most controversial video that I'll make. So today's topic is one that I mentioned last week, that I was going to kind of give my views on where I thought altars came from. Disclaimer, just right off the bat, these are my views. These are things that I've observed in my 44 years on the planet. This is not meant to affect anyone. This is just my opinion. When I was first diagnosed back in '91, it was solidly believed that altars were just a split off from the main consciousness or the core. And each altar was an aspect of that person's personality. For instance, somebody held anger, somebody held pain, somebody held intellect, somebody held the caretaker mentality. And I believed it. I believed it wholeheartedly. I believed that all of my system came from different emotions. And that's how they displayed themselves, was the emotion that they came from. I was solely convinced that the people in my system were just variations of me, and they were just manifested emotions. Through the course of a lot of research and reading a lot of books, as I observed them, and as I went through the world, and as I started meeting different people with systems. Now, mind you, I didn't know any other systems until I started making YouTube videos. So it's only been 5 years that I started meeting other systems. And all of those systems, the ones that I really got to know, were all different. Every single one of them had an idea about where they came from. And every person within the system had an idea of where they came from. Now, if we're looking at a scope, let's say that this is the scope, okay? From this side, this collar to this collar, okay, that's our scope. I believe that this much is a product of how psychologists and psychiatrists saw MPD and DID in the early 90s when I was diagnosed. The rest of it, I think, is very different. I no longer believe that every single system comes from a breaking apart of the main consciousness. I no longer believe that. I'm a very spiritual person. And I believe that there are spiritual planes. And I believe that there are people out there who, for whatever reason, didn't want to pass over to be reincarnated. And I think those people found a purpose by entering people who were close to death and became a person within the system. And that's where they remain to this day. As far as the idea of integration, when it comes to spirits who enter a body that is in a weakened state, the idea of integration is going to be very different. It's not that they integrated within the main consciousness. They just felt that the person was strong enough now that they didn't have to stay, and they leave the body. Another aspect that I've seen and that I believe in is that within each person already resides these different personalities. These different, not even personalities, because that negates their existence. These people, they're not even personalities, they're people. They're separate entities. And even though it's about the same as trying to understand the size of the universe. It's hard for a lot of people to grasp the size of it. And it's hard for those same people to grasp that within one physical body, there could be many people. So if we function on that idea that the system has always been there, then what makes us unaware of them until... I think a lot of it has to come with comfort level. Just as anybody would have to get used to the idea of having multiple people within them, I think those people within the system would have to as well. Perhaps there are some systems where they just jump into it and they're accepting and they're understanding and they're full throttle forward with the idea that they are a combined collective. Basically, this is what I believe. And again, this is just my view. This is just my understanding of what I've seen. This does not make it fact. This is just my opinion. I think it can be broken down into 3 categories. The one is the breaking down of the main consciousness into these other selves, so that when those traumas are worked through, processed, those beings, those shattered selves will go back into the main consciousness, if that's what they want. I think it's easier for that group to integrate than any other system, because it would be more fluid to go back into what the way it was in the beginning. The second group, I think, comes from the spiritual world combining with the physical world to work towards a common goal, to help somebody heal from severe trauma. And when their time comes, they're able to more freely leave. And then here's the group that has always been a system from birth. For whatever reason, they were just a multiple consciousness in a single body. How did they come that way? That's a good question. And it's just an awakening of those people. A meeting of the minds. An understanding and accepting of each other's goals and determinations, needs and wants. And then everybody working together to make sure that everybody's comfort levels are met. Are there other situations where a system would be? I'm sure of it. But those are just the main 3 that I can think of right now. Now the question is, where do I think my system came from? I honestly don't know. I'm starting to believe that they've always been there. Cassie can remember parts of our infancy. She can remember very early when the body was maybe 1.5 years old. She can remember a very long time ago. It's fascinating. It's truly fascinating. I think they've always been there. And I think it was just a process of me learning that they were there and accepting they were there and getting to know them. And just like everything in the world, everything you experience has to be processed. Whether it's easy to process or difficult to process, you still have to process it to understand how it fully impacts you. When we break down those barriers of prejudice And fear, we're able to see things more clearly as they are. And I think that's what processing helps us do when getting to know our systems. We break down those barriers and we're able to see them for who they are. And they are these amazing people who did extraordinary things in very difficult circumstances. And for the most part, they come out pretty decent people. I'm glad mine are here, and I wouldn't want them to. I wouldn't want them to go. I mean, if they're the spirit world, and they're just waiting for their time to leave, I don't want them to go. Okay, I think that's all I have to say about that. If there are any questions about this, please feel free to contact me. And if you want me to kind of analyze anything else about this topic, I'd be more than happy to. Just let me know if there are any questions you have about this, and we'll go from there. Beth is going to talk about her creation story. I don't know how far she's going to go into it, but I do forewarn some people that it could be triggering. Just know that ahead of time. And I hope you guys are well, and I hope you have a very wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys later.